What's going on YouTube? Username Kite562 here, and I have another book review for you, and it is of The Haunting of Ashburn House by Darcey Coates. Now, this is my second Darcey Coates book review, so I'll leave a link to my first Darcey Coates book somewhere up here. The Haunting of Lee Harker, which I did a while back, I think it was like a year ago or almost, but I'll leave a link up here in the video link. So anyway, let's get on with this review. Now, within this 44 chapter book, comprised of like 300 or so pages, I thought this was a really intriguing and eerie story. Now, our main character's named Adrian, and she's down on her luck, and she inherits this mysterious house called Ashburn House. On like the outskirts of town, you have a really dense and dark forest you have to deal with, and a bunch of cozy horror moments within this nice ambient setting of, Ashburn House, where the main story takes place. Now, I'm going to read to you all the synopsis. There's something wrong with Ashburn House. Everyone knows about Ashburn House. The whisper that its old owner went mad and restless ghosts still walk its halls. But when Adrian, desperate and in need of a place to stay, inherits the crumbling old mansion, she only sees it as a lifeline until darkness falls. Strange messages are etched into the walls. Furniture moves when she leaves the room, and a grave hidden in the depths of the forest hints at a terrible, unforgivable secret. Something twisted lives in her house, its hungry eyes ever watchful, chasing the threads of a decades-old mystery. It isn't long before she realizes she's become prey to something deeply unnatural and intensely resentful. She has no idea how to escape. She has no idea how to survive. Only one thing is certain: Ashburn's dead are not at rest. And the twist within this book really surprised me, but I have to say this was a really nice, cozy horror level book. And all in all, it was just a really enjoyable experience. There's a slew of other small town characters as well, and this story also has its own little folk legends about Ashburn House itself. Like, there's a routine Edith had, which she was the previous owner of the house before passing away at the age of 90. So, like, with the strange things that Ashburn House experiences within Adrian's eyes, Adrian, sees these messages from Edith, scratched within the table or within the walls saying, "Is it Friday? You gotta light the candle," and no mirrors in the house. And all in all, all the environments of, this old Victorian mansion surrounding Adrian, it was just really interesting and intriguing, along with the townspeople that Adrian comes across, in which the story of the Haunting of Ashburn House takes place in this little town called Ipsen. I really don't know where Ipsen is per se, but I thought it was a really nice, cozy feeling, and along the way Ashburn House would always have these urban legends tied to them. Like, kids would go run into the forest on a dare or run onto the porch of Ashburn House since they always thought it was haunted by ghosts. And then once these four, investigators come in, named Jane, Sarah, Beth, and Marion, which become Adrian's first few friends within this story, I just thought it was really wonderful in how everything unfolded within the story of The Haunting of Ashburn House, and the twist at the end really surprised me. So it's a really atmospheric story itself. So I have to say, the uneasiness of The Haunting of Ashburn story, as I finish chapter 23 of this book, again, this is a 44 chapter page story, and from chapter 23, Unnatural, the story's still very detailed and atmospheric in my opinion. The chapters themselves feel really episodic. In the chapter Tours, that's when Adrian meets the four people, Jane, Sarah, Beth, and Marion, and they end up touring the house giving Adrian bits and pieces of information of Ashburn House's past, like the legend of the candle, the routine of that being lit by Edith on every Friday. So it would look like a lighthouse to everyone who would view Ashburn House from the outside. And really, from how Ashburn House itself, the cover really doesn't do it justice, but this is still an enjoyable story nonetheless. But I have to say, Ashburn House to me, like the way I see it within my mind, it looks more like the Bates mansion, you know, Norman Bates's house where his mom lived. So I thought that always kept on popping into my mind whenever I'd hear people talking about Ashburn House within the story, mainly from the view of the four tourists and the likes of Jane, Sarah, Beth, and Marion. And I have to say, some chapters really had me on the edge of my seat. It was a really wonderful experience. And all in all, I really couldn't put the book down, and it just really drew me in as a reader. So, all in all, Ashburn House was another great and phenomenal experience that I enjoyed from Darcey Coates. All in all, The Haunting of Ashburn House was a really solid second Darcey Coates opinion, and in my opinion, this was a really great book in my eyes. I mean, I've only read 2 Darcey Coates books ever. First being The Haunting of Leigh Harker, and then now The Haunting of Ashburn House finally. It was a really enjoyable experience itself. So, at the end of the day, I'm going to wrap up my thoughts here with finally being finished with The Haunting of Ashburn House. The twist I found both surprising and refreshing. With the book's 44 chapter story, with all of the chapters' lengths not being too long or too short, with a very cozy horror type of story wrapped within these pages, with many twists and turns within the town of Ibsen and the history of Ashburn House, I give The Haunting of Ashburn House an 8.9 out of 10. It's a really great story, really solid, and I really don't want to get into spoilers with this book, but it has a really cozy small town vibe. And again, at the end of the day, I give The Haunting of Ashburn House by Darcey Coates an 8.9 out of 10, with a highly, highly recommend it for you all to read. So anyway, this is Kite562 signing out, and as always, I hope you have a wonderful day, everybody. Later.